Medina, a city of peace, a city loved by millions, a city protected by faith. But one night, a danger was moving toward it. Slowly, silently, hidden beneath the ground. Nobody saw it. Nobody heard it. Nobody knew it existed. The people slept peacefully. The streets were quiet. The lamps burned through the night. Everything seemed normal. But beneath the city, someone was digging. Every night, the tunnel grew longer. Every night, the danger moved closer. Closer to one of the most sacred places in Islam. And if the plan succeeded, history could change forever. Hundreds of miles away, a ruler suddenly woke up. His heart was racing. His body was covered in sweat. Because of a dream. Not an ordinary dream. A warning. A terrifying warning. In the dream, he saw two strange men. Their faces were clear. Their expressions were unforgettable. It felt as if they were calling for help, or hiding a secret. The ruler sat in silence, unable to sleep, unable to forget what he had seen. That ruler was Sultan Nuruddin Zangi, a man known for his faith, his justice, and his devotion to Islam. But even he could not understand the dream. Who were those men? Why had he seen them? And why did the dream feel so real? The next night, it happened again. The same two men. The same faces. The same feeling of danger. Now he knew. This was no coincidence. Something was wrong. And somehow, it was connected to Medina. Then came the third night. And the dream returned once more. This time, the Sultan made a decision. He would travel to Medina himself. No matter the distance. No matter the cost. Because deep inside, he felt that time was running out. What he didn't know was that a secret tunnel was already being dug beneath the sacred city. And the people behind it were closer to their goal than anyone could imagine. The journey began immediately. Nuruddin Zangi wasted no time. If the dream was a warning, he could not afford to ignore it. Day after day, his caravan crossed the desert, through burning heat, through endless sand, through long nights of uncertainty. But the closer he came to Medina, the stronger the feeling became. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Finally, he arrived. The city looked peaceful. Nothing seemed unusual. The markets were busy. People filled the streets. Pilgrims came and went. Everything appeared normal. But the Sultan wasn't convinced. He remembered the faces from his dream. Every detail. Every expression. And he knew they were somewhere in the city. So he came up with a plan. Instead of searching house by house, he announced a large charity distribution. Money, food, gifts. Everyone in Medina was invited. One by one, people came forward. The Sultan greeted them personally, carefully watching every face. Hours passed. Nothing. More people arrived. Still nothing. Then suddenly, his heart froze. Two men stepped forward. The exact same faces. The same men from the dream. Nuruddin immediately recognized them. There was no doubt. These were the men he had seen 3 times. But something didn't make sense. The two men looked respectable. They spoke politely. They appeared religious. Many people in Medina even praised them. According to the locals, they spent their days worshipping, giving charity, helping others. Nothing about them seemed suspicious. Yet the Sultan couldn't ignore the warning. Not after the dream. Not after traveling all this way. So he ordered a quiet investigation. No public accusations. No arrests. No attention. He wanted the truth. And what his men discovered would shock everyone. Because behind their reputation, behind their smiles, behind their acts of devotion, the two strangers were hiding a secret. A secret buried beneath the city itself. And that secret was about to be uncovered. The investigation began quietly. No one in Medina knew. Not the merchants. Not the pilgrims. Not even the two strangers. Nuruddin wanted answers. And he wanted them fast. His men started watching the strangers day and night. At first, everything looked normal. The two men prayed regularly. They gave charity. They spoke kindly to people. They rarely attracted attention. In fact, the more they watched them, the more confused they became. Could the dream be wrong? Had the Sultan traveled all this way for nothing? But then, something strange happened. Every evening, the two men disappeared into their home. And they stayed there for hours. Nobody entered. Nobody left. The doors remained shut. The windows remained covered. It was as if they were hiding something. Night after night, the same pattern repeated. The Sultan's suspicion grew stronger. Then one day, he ordered a full search of the house. The strangers were brought outside. The doors were opened. And soldiers entered. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The rooms were clean. The furniture was simple. Religious books were everywhere. Everything looked exactly like the home of two devoted men. But Nuruddin refused to leave. Something still felt wrong. Then, someone noticed a section of the floor. It looked different. Slightly different. Almost impossible to notice. The soldiers moved closer. They lifted it. And suddenly, their faces turned pale. Beneath the floor was a hidden opening. A secret entrance, leading deep underground. The room fell silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The Sultan stepped forward, looked down into the darkness, and realized the dream had been telling the truth all along. But what lay at the end of that tunnel was even more terrifying than anyone imagined. The tunnel was real. Everything the Sultan had feared was true. Soldiers lit their torches. One by one, they climbed down into the darkness. The air was cold. The tunnel was narrow. And the deeper they went, the more disturbing it became. This was not a small hole. This was not a random passage. Someone had spent months building it. Maybe longer. The walls showed clear signs of labor. The ground was packed tight. Every detail had been planned. Every step had been calculated. The soldiers continued forward. Foot after foot. Torch after torch. Until they realized something terrifying. The tunnel wasn't moving away from the city. It was moving toward a specific destination. A destination so sacred that nobody could believe what they were seeing. The Sultan followed behind, his face filled with concern. Now the pieces were coming together. The dream, the strangers, the secret house, the hidden entrance. Everything pointed to one horrifying truth. This had never been a simple crime. This was a mission. A carefully planned mission. And the closer they followed the tunnel, the more obvious its target became. Then one soldier suddenly stopped. He stared ahead, speechless. Another soldier raised his torch. The light revealed fresh digging marks. The tunnel had not been abandoned. It was active. Work had been happening recently. Very recently. The men were getting close. Dangerously close. A few more weeks. Perhaps even a few more days. And their plan might have succeeded. Silence filled the tunnel. Nobody wanted to imagine what could have happened. The Sultan closed his eyes for a moment. Then he understood something. If he had ignored the dream, if he had delayed the journey, if he had arrived even a little later, history might have been very different. But one question still remained. Who were these men? And why were they willing to risk everything for this secret mission? The answer would shock the entire city. The truth was finally coming out. The two strangers were brought before Sultan Nuruddin Zangi. This time, there was nowhere left to hide. The secret tunnel had been found. The evidence was undeniable. At first, they refused to speak. They denied everything. They acted innocent. But the tunnel beneath their home told a different story. The Sultan ordered a deeper investigation. Soon, their real story began to emerge. The two men were not who they claimed to be. They had carefully built a reputation. They appeared generous, religious, trustworthy. Everything had been planned. Their kindness was a disguise. Their worship was a disguise. Even their charity was a disguise. For months, they had earned the trust of the people of Medina, while secretly working on a mission hidden beneath the city. A mission so dangerous that even thinking about it shocked those who heard it. As more details surfaced, the city was filled with disbelief. People could not understand how such a plot had remained hidden for so long. Others were terrified, not because the tunnel existed, but because of how close it had come to succeeding. The workers had already covered a huge distance underground. Every night, they moved a little closer. Every night, they believed they were getting nearer to their goal. And if the dream had never come, if the Sultan had ignored the warning, nobody knows what might have happened. The realization sent a chill through the city. Medina had been protected, but only at the very last moment. The danger was over. Yet one question remained. What should be done now? And how could such a threat never happen again? Sultan Nuruddin was already thinking about the answer. And his next decision would leave a permanent mark on Islamic history. Sultan Nuruddin knew one thing. Finding the tunnel was not enough. The danger had been stopped. But the city still needed protection. Permanent protection. Something that would make sure no one could ever attempt such a plot again. The Sultan personally inspected the area. He studied the tunnel. He examined every detail. And the more he saw, the more serious the situation became. This was not the work of desperate thieves. This was a carefully planned operation. A mission prepared over months. Maybe even years. The Sultan realized that future enemies might try something similar. And if they did, Medina could face the same danger again. So he made a historic decision. A decision that people would remember for centuries. Workers were gathered. Materials were brought in. And a massive project began. Day after day, the work continued. The Sultan spared no expense. No shortcuts. No delays. He wanted absolute security. The goal was simple. Create a barrier that no tunnel could ever pass through. A barrier hidden beneath the ground. A barrier strong enough to stop any future plot. The work took time. But eventually, it was completed. The sacred area was now surrounded by powerful protection. Something no secret tunnel could easily cross. When the people of Medina learned what had happened, many were shocked. Others were overwhelmed with gratitude, because they now understood how close the danger had come. Very close. Closer than anyone had imagined. And they understood something else. If the Sultan had ignored the dream, If he had dismissed it as imagination, the story might have ended very differently. Instead, Medina was safe. The plot had failed, and a city loved by millions had been protected. But the story was not over, because the most powerful lesson was still to come. A lesson about faith, trust, and the mysterious ways help can arrive when it is needed most. Years passed. The danger was gone. The tunnel was gone. And Medina remained safe. But the story was never forgotten. Because this wasn't just a story about a tunnel. It wasn't just a story about a crime. And it wasn't just a story about two strangers. It was a story about a warning. A warning that arrived at exactly the right moment. Think about it. Out of all the people in the Muslim world, why was Sultan Nuruddin shown that dream? Why 3 times? Why those faces? And why at that exact moment? No one can answer every question. But one thing became clear. The Sultan listened when others might have ignored it. He acted when others might have waited. And because he acted, Medina was protected. History is full of powerful kings, famous warriors, and great armies. But sometimes, one decision changes everything. One moment, one warning, one journey. That was all it took. Today, millions of Muslims visit Medina every year. Most walk through its streets without knowing this story, without knowing how close a hidden plot came to succeeding, or how a ruler crossed the desert because he believed something was wrong. Yet that is exactly what happened. A dream led to an investigation. An investigation revealed a tunnel. And a tunnel exposed one of the most shocking plots in Islamic history. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this. When faith is sincere, and intentions are pure, help can arrive from places nobody expects. Sometimes through people, sometimes through events, and sometimes through a warning that changes history forever. This is why the story of Sultan Nuruddin Zangi is still remembered today. Not because of his power, not because of his wealth, but because when Medina needed protection, he answered the call. And because of that, the sacred city was saved. At the very last moment. The end. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to subscribe to Project Nuravo and press the notification bell so you never miss our future videos. That way, you'll be among the first to receive every new documentary, untold story, and forgotten chapter of Islamic history we share. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Your comments motivate us to keep creating more powerful documentaries and bring you even more incredible stories from Islamic history. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. Peace be upon you.